Hey you guys, welcome back to Racket City Yardstead. I'm Sarah. I'm so glad you're here. So today we're going to do things a little bit differently. We're still in the kitchen, but there is not a garden produce to be seen for this video, unless you spot it in the background somewhere because there is some lying around. But we are going to make cookies. I keep seeing people talking about pumpkin spice, this and that and the other, and I thought Snickerdoodles sounded really good. I've made them before and they're delicious, this oat flour recipe, but we are going to substitute out the plain cinnamon for a pie spice. And I think that's going to be delicious. So the first thing I need to do is get the oven preheated to 350 degrees, and then we can get going on our cookies. So the other thing I really need to do before I can mix my cookie dough, is this is the first time I've ever done this, is I actually made my own vanilla. I got this big bottle of vodka at Sam's Club back in February, I think. And then I bought vanilla beans off of Amazon. I know there's lots of places you can buy them. And this has just been hanging out in my pantry for months and it smells amazing. I took a sniff earlier and my store-bought vanilla is gone. And so I figured I would just reuse that bottle and pour some of this homemade vanilla in here because we need it for our cookies today. Here we go. I can't remember exactly. I did the math on this and I was really surprised because if you've never made vanilla from scratch up front, like it is a little bit of sticker shock when you see how much it's going to cost you to make like a big bottle of vanilla like this. But I looked at the weight of the bottle that I normally buy. I buy it at Sam's Club, so it's more cost effective than if I just went to the regular grocery store. And I think the savings was still something like $40 for the amount of vanilla I was going to get. So if you decide you want to make your own vanilla and are kind of freaked out really by the price of what it's going to cost up front, if you can afford it, it does save you in the long run. It was definitely worth doing that cost analysis because if I had just looked at the upfront costs, I would have been like, whoa, I'm just going to buy this stuff at the store. So it probably depends on if you use a lot of vanilla too. So just keep all of that in mind. Okay, so now that the vanilla is all bottled up, it's time to get our cookie dough going. So first thing we need is a cup of butter. I'm sure if you need to be completely dairy-free, you could use a butter alternative here. And we need a cup of sugar. For something with this kind of quantity of sugar in it, I like to use coconut sugar. This will definitely give it more of a brown sugar-like flavor, but my body just tolerates it better than cane sugar. Too much cane sugar makes my joints hurt. So these will be darker than a traditional snickerdoodle because of the oat flour and the coconut sugar, but they will taste amazing. And I kind of think that more complex flavor you get with the coconut sugar, it lends itself really nicely to a fall flavor. So I'm looking forward to these. I did get a little bit too much. See if I can brush it off into my mason jar there without making a mess. Okay, so a cup of sugar, and then we want to cream these together. All right, so our butter and our sugar are all nice and whipped together. cream together. So the next thing we're going to add is our vanilla. It calls for a tablespoon of vanilla, and then also an egg and an egg yolk. So we'll get those all mixed into here. Ooh, some of my vanilla beans must have broken open because there's actually little flecks in my vanilla. That's kind of fun. Okay. Egg. One egg. And then I'm just going to use my measuring cup here to separate out my white from my yolk. Part of that white's really hanging on today. It'll be fine. Okay. I'm going to get my hands cleaned up. And we'll get the eggs and vanilla all incorporated. So the next thing we need to do is add our cinnamon, and in this case we are using pie spice, just whatever your favorite pie spice is. This recipe calls for 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, and so we're gonna substitute that out with our pie spice. Oh, it smells so good. It smells like fall. We also need 2 teaspoons of cream of tartar. 1, 2, and finally we need a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So now we just need to get those all mixed in, and the last thing we need to add is our flour. Give it a whisk, or scrape down, I guess. I used to have one of those batter attachments that had the scraper on the side. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? But it eventually broke off and I just haven't replaced it. I did really love that tool. Every once in a while, I think maybe I should get another one, but I don't really do enough of this kind of thing that it's really a high priority, you know? So I'll give that one more mix. And then we're going to get our flour added. Now, everything I've done so far, I have just used cup measures and spoons, but I am going to use my scale for the oat flour just because I find it compacts quite a bit and I get a better measurement if I use weights. And so it calls for 3 1/4 cups of oat flour, which is 390 grams of flour. And so we're just going to use the weights for that. So I'm going to grab a bowl so I can weigh it out on the scale. Here, looking for 390 grams of oat flour. This is my homemade oat flour. I do it in my Vitamix. It is still a little bit coarse, but I find for things like cookies, I don't mind at all. And it's a lot cheaper to do it homemade than to buy oat flour, I find. So I save that store-bought extra fine oat flour for things where I really need a super fine consistency. All right, so we'll just get this added to our dough. All right, let's get our oat flour added. Try not to turn it on too hard here. I'm going to give this a scrape down. Scrape the sides and the bottom of this bowl so we make sure everything is good and incorporated. Okay. Give it one more. It smells like fall, you guys. So good. I did a little bit of cleaning up in the kitchen, cleaning up my spilled flour and sugar and stuff. And so now my dough's been sitting for a little bit. This is not actually in the recipe, but I find personally with oat flour that sometimes it just needs a few minutes to hydrate fully. And like the dough is looking more like it should now. But when I first started, it was just a little bit more sticky than I wanted it. And I knew if I let it sit for a few minutes, it would be more the consistency that I wanted it. It just takes it a little bit longer than wheat flour. But now that that's ready to go, we're going to get our sugar coating for our cookies going. I am going to use cane sugar for this. This is a much smaller amount really compared to what's in the cookies. So this is 3 tablespoons of cane sugar to a teaspoon of cinnamon, or in our case, pie spice. Oh, I need to grab my measuring spoon. And we'll see, but I gotta be honest with you guys. I've never made Snickerdoodles where I didn't have to make more than one batch of what it called for the sugar topping. Is that unique to me, or do you guys find that as well? Because I always run out and have to make more. I want my cookies really good and coated. So we'll just mix this all together. And then we're ready to start rolling our cookies into balls. I have a cookie sheet with parchment paper here. Oh, I need to grab my cookie scoop too. Cookie scoop. Still haven't replaced it. I need to do that. I was just at the big Walmart recently too. So I'm actually going to go through and scoop out a bunch of these. Probably the whole batch. Most of these I'm going to stick in the freezer and we can pull them out when we want to treat and have, just cook up a few cookies. But we'll cook a few together because I definitely want a cookie. But we'll just scoop all of these like this. They don't want to come out of my slightly wonky cookie scoop, but that's fine because we're going to roll them into balls. But once I get all of these scooped out, then we'll roll them and then roll them into that sugar. Okay, the cookies are all scooped out. So now I'm just going to roll them into balls. This recipe makes 30 cookies and it made exactly 30 cookies for me. So I'm always pleased when cookies really do come out giving you the yield they say they're going to. But we'll just get these all rolled into balls. and then we'll come back and roll them in the cinnamon sugar, or in our case, pie spice sugar. Our dough's all rolled into nice little balls, and we're just gonna roll them in our sugar pie spice mixture now. So we'll come back once these are all coated up. Oh, they're so pretty. I love how the sugar glistens. So now that our cookies are all rolled in the cinnamon sugar, we give them just a little bit of a press and flatten them out. So I'm actually just going to use a mason jar here and do that. This is the tray of cookies I am going to actually bake. So these cookies that we've already smashed, they're ready to bake now, and they are going to go in the oven for 8 to 11 minutes. We're just looking for them to be golden brown, starting to set around the edges. And, you know, it just depends on your oven, how long you need to cook them. So I always start at the lowest time and then check on the cookies as they go to see if they need a little bit longer. These cookies are ready to go in the freezer. So they will go in the freezer just like this and stay until probably tomorrow sometime. And then once they're nice and frozen solid, I will put them in a Ziploc bag. And then whenever we want some cookies, we can pull them out and bake them fresh. Typically, when I bake cookies from frozen, I will lower the temperature on the oven by about 25 degrees from whatever the recipe calls for, and then add an extra 2 to 3 minutes. I find that that just helps that center of the cookie actually have time to really cook from being frozen. So I'm going to get these out in the freezer, and I will meet you back here when the cookies in the oven are ready. This is what our cookies are looking like after 8 minutes, and I'm really happy with that. You can see the edges are set, and so I'm going to get these pulled out of the oven. Our cookies have been sitting here cooling for a few minutes on their tray. Now I'm going to transfer them. Ooh, that was unexpected. But we're going to transfer them to a tray so they can finish cooling down. They smell so good. And the granulated sugar I use, it glistens and catches the light. It's just so pretty. So let's see if these are cool enough to give a try, because I'm impatient. That pie spice. Mm-hmm. They're so good, you guys. If you need a gluten-free option, these oat flour cookies are a great option. If you don't, and you have a favorite snickerdoodle recipe, maybe just try the pie spice instead of the cinnamon, because it's a nice little change. So I hope you guys will give some fall cookies a try wherever you live, even if it's close to 100 degrees like it is here where I live. So thanks for hanging out with me today. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Bye.